Welcome to Cybersecurity Sense, a weekly podcast providing updates and insight into the latest in cybersecurity. Brought to you by LBMC Information Security. Now, here's your host.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to LBMC Cybersecurity Sense. Today, we're back with another episode. It's been a minute since we've talked about it, but it's PCI based. We have our two favorites here on the line, Andy Kerr and Kyle Hinterberg, the professionals as always. Guys, how y'all doing?
Doing pretty good.
Hey, great.
Good. Been a minute since we talked about this stuff, guys. So today,
a little bit of a hiatus, but glad to be back in the swing of it.
That's right. We had a little bit of a busy season there for a little bit. So, but we're getting back in the swing of things and expect our monthly updates here. So just like the good old days, Kyle, we'll let you kick it off with some news over there. What's going on in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, since the last time we spoke, we've gotten even closer to the upcoming PCI Community Meeting. That's an annual thing. The North America one, there's, one that takes place over in Asia and Europe as well, but obviously the North America one's close to us, and it's coming up in September over in Portland, Oregon. And the exciting thing there is Brian Willis, another QSA here at LBMC, and myself have been accepted to speak up on the main stage. And so if anyone is planning to head out to Portland in September, you can come out and see us. We're going to be talking about generative AI, ChatGPT and all that goodness. And really the idea is how organizations might be able to use it to expand their capabilities, make their life easier while not hopefully introducing too much risk into the environment.
I don't know about you guys listening.
Introduction
but
to
that
Skynet.
interesting.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're doing. Literally Skynet for PCI compliance.
Skynet, how do we use this? I don't know about you all, but that sounds really interesting. I'm already intrigued. I want to go hear about this. Can I find this? Can I find a video of this online anywhere?
There will be after it's done. If you either are, I think, a participating organization with the council, or if you pay for it or have went to the community meeting, it will be up on their global content library. But there's also, Brian and I are also going to be actually giving the same talk in October at the ISE Squared Security Congress down in Nashville. And so that one might be recorded as well. I don't know what their plans are to release it. So there's actually a couple chances to see us chat about ChatGPT.
Perfect. Yeah, you and Brian are pretty busy. Y'all are busy with this talk, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I love it. I myself just find myself playing with ChatGPT all the time. So I really think that a lot of people can make a lot of use out of it.
There's a lot of good use cases for it. Honestly, it's really impressive what it can do.
I need a children's story tonight, right, for my kids. Go ahead.
There you go. Let it rip. Dad, where'd you hear this story? Somewhere. It's an old fable. It's an old fable. All right. What else do we have going on? What else is happening?
Another big piece of news that a lot of people in PCI might have heard about is the new INFI or INFI, which that's the way it's pronounced, I guess. I know the council said it yesterday, so now we know. But it's the items noted for improvement, and I know this is Andy's new favorite thing, so I'll maybe let him talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so basically what's happened is previously when 4.0 came out, there was a section that 4.0 was going to talk about that basically said during the course of the assessment, if a gap is found or something that is not in compliant is found, there was a checkbox for saying basically in place, during the assessment. Well, there was a lot of pushback regarding that. So I feel like this is almost a little bit of a middle ground that they tried to find that would still meet the intent of this. But essentially what it would be is for anybody that's going through an assessment or an internal resource that's kind of going through the PCI compliance, and they find a gap or a hole or whatever that may be, and they're able to say, hey, all right, yes, you're absolutely right, we have an issue here, we have remediated it, and this is how we're going to ensure that it is not going to happen going forward. This kind of provides a medium to be able to do that. So a lot of this comes down to a very common occurrence that happens with most entities is that, the internal vulnerability scans or, there's a patch is missing or, these types of things. Hey, we had half our security team just left and we have a gap that got missed, whatever that may be. But you can see, even though we missed it over the past 12 months, we have fixed it, and this is how we're going to, make sure that this doesn't happen going forward. Now, depending on your agency and entity, as an auditor, you may say, okay, well, there's room here that we can kind of work with you, or maybe that black and white, no, this is wrong, you fail, going forward, there's nothing we can do. This kind of opens the door for this to be able to remediate this. So as of right now, it is not required for 3.2.1, but it is highly recommended. 4.0, it will be required. So during the assessments, you have to complete this. So I've had a client already where I've had to kind of step in and utilize this with a large turnover. They were able to remediate some problems, and we were able to fill this document out, and then they sign an attestation that says this will not happen going forward. Now, I am curious. Now, Kyle, I don't know if you've heard anything. I personally have not. If the auditor comes back around next year and that same issue is there again, what are the ultimate consequences for that?
Ooh.
What I've heard and seen so far is that it gets down into, really the, auditor, QSA determination, that it's like, hey, you guys keep failing on this, even though you are good at this point in time, since you failed multiple years in a row, it's completely within the, QSA's realm of capabilities to say you're failed at this point. And that, since this is a recurring problem, you're going to have to do something else. So it's going to be ultimately up to the QSA, and then, beyond that, likely a little bit up to the acquirer. But on that note too, one good thing to note is that, obviously, even though acquirers are ultimately responsible for compliance, they won't actually see this INFI report unless unless the entity gives it to them. It's something that's only really going to be shared between the QSA and the assessed entity. So it's nice on that side point that you don't have to worry that everyone's going to kind of see your dirty laundry.
Right.
Oh, that's really nice, actually. Nobody likes to see anyone else's dirty laundry, so we'll keep that one private.
One thing too, kind of off that note, is something that we're doing here at LBMC is recognizing with the push with 4.0, with this new INFI worksheet, is the idea of continuous compliance, and it's something that we're trying to do with our clients too, is to roll that out, and rather than just look at PCI as a 3 to 4 month assessment and then we're gone, to stick with our clients throughout the year. And so that's really been a big incentive from our standpoint, is to stay with them, work all year round. It's kind of similar to, like I know Will over on the pen test side with the advanced guard, a similar mindset that the longer and the more consistently we can stay with our clients, the easier it is for all of us, because then there's not those, gotcha moments like Andy mentioned, dealing with the one client where, someone quits and now all of a sudden there's a roadblock that you don't know how to get through.
Right. Right. Oh, no, that's true. And it's nice to have that continuous kind of mindset as well, because it's never like a start and stop. You're just kind of always, I feel like it's harder to start and stop. I mean, think about it like a car. It's hard to stop a car. It's hard to start a car. It takes more gas to do that than just kind of cruise on through. You continuously see the same
just
speed.
do everything business as usual. I know that's what the council, that's the term they've been pushing forever, but hopefully now, between 4.0, the new INFI worksheet, the customized controls, all these things that they're doing to really try to support that, and as well as, us, and I know other assessors are doing similar. That's hopefully the future we're finally working towards. Perfect.
All right, guys, business as usual. Stay continuous. So, gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about requirement 4. I know you guys have a lot to speak on with that, so let's just jump straight into it. I'm curious. As we all know, I'm learning every time that we're on here, right? So I'm curious, what is requirement 4?
Sure. Really, requirement 4, the easiest way to think about it is anytime you are transmitting cardholder data over essentially an unprotected or unsecured network, how are you protecting it? Right. So, the easy things to think about is basically if you're sending it over the internet, if you're sending it over wireless, or if you're sending it over some type of end user, type of communication like email or chat, anything like that. If you're sending it over any of those 3 areas, what do you do to protect it? That's essentially it.
And this is one of those things, as far as like what your QSA is looking for. So for those of you who are like, all right, so what are we looking at? What do we need to see? One of the biggest things that I always try to utilize when I'm doing this particular one is like, all right, so what are your external IP addresses? What is outward facing right now for you as a company? What does that look like? And they should be able to provide you an inventory of IP addresses. So typically, I will have them run something like as simple as Qualys's SSL labs up against the IP address itself. This will provide us the QSA a ton of different information about, hey, what are the different versions of SSL TLS that's running on that particular device? What are the ciphers? And it'll really give it a kind of grade. It'll say, top of the line A, B, C, D. If there's something that it identifies as that would not work, or it is possibly a weakness. So it's a really great tool to be used by either the client, or if they don't feel comfortable, the auditor themselves can run the SSL labs. It's not high impact. It's not going to cause any disruption of services, and it pulls that information that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And another good place to look or to consider now with obviously the shift to work from home, and most people are still working from home. Another good thing to keep in mind is any like, for instance, call center agents or other individuals that might have to access or transmit cardholder data. If they're leveraging like a VPN or something like that, that would be another good place to call out, like, hey, you're using a VPN, it's encrypting everything, but obviously that's what's protecting it as it's transmitting over the internet. So another good area to double check and just make sure that's implemented correctly. Perfect. And then I feel like the easiest way to get through the second half of this requirement is just don't use Wi-Fi and don't email credit card numbers. And if you don't do those, half the requirement 4 is not applicable, and you're done.
There you go. That's easy. Just buy yourself some Cat 6, Cat 5 Ethernet cable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and in the go ahead. I was going to say, in the instances that, and again, what I am seeing, I don't see a whole lot of entities, transmitting cardholder data over Wi-Fi these days. It rarely comes up. It's not something that's very common. However, just like what we would see with any other entity, there would be, when we're pulling samples, when we're pulling, being able to see configurations, we would kind of go through some similar steps, just like what we did with connected to systems or any of those systems that are transmitting cardholder data. We would want to see, all right, show us your portal. What does that look like? How is that? Is there strong encryption around the transmission of that cardholder data? Let's pull up the settings. Who has access to it? Who could go in there and change those settings? We'll look at password authentication. And a lot of times that's tied back to some sort of Active Directory, or maybe there's local accounts. So a lot of that stuff, just like you would do with any of these other devices that are considered in scope for your PCI compliance, your QSA is going to be looking at the same types of things.
And so this is kind of bouncing back to just the roles and responsibilities delegated to individuals on the network.
Yeah. Having those roles and knowing what's going on and who's doing what and making sure it's all there. And it's one of those things too, like when it comes to wireless, Andy and I are going to tell you all day, just skip it and don't even worry about it. But that's where PCI is flexible, and it's not non-compliant to use wireless. You totally can. Like Andy was just saying, you just have to make sure it's secure. And even using end user messaging technologies, which again, like email and whatnot, you can even use that to send cardholder data. We're going to tell you not to, but as long as you're encrypting it and properly protecting it, it can still be good to go.
And there's lots of different services that I've seen clients implement for the end user technologies. So a lot of times what'll happen is, a lot of the hardware stores or online ordering, you'll pull up your kind of chat box there, and you're going to be talking to somebody, and hey, we can assist you with your order right here over the phone. Okay, well, great. So what's happening is typically is once they say, all right, you're going to go ahead and enter your credit card number, that's not going through the actual merchant themselves. They'll have some sort of third-party service provider that is kind of creating this pop-up window and this differentiation in between the merchant and the client themselves. And so what I've seen implemented is the call center folks that are actually responding on the chat can't even see the credit card anymore. It's actually being masked and hidden from them, and it's actually going through a third party, and then that third party is kind of getting that card holder data, and that's making its way back to the merchant. But This is something that I don't see like I used to, 5 years ago. You did, for convenience, people are using the chat and their end user
Right.
credit card numbers, but not so much because everybody has realized the risk that kind of goes along with it.
Right.
One thing too, just in general for requirement for, kind of like earlier when Andy was saying, as far as trying to figure out where this applies or whatnot, the easiest way is like if you have a data flow diagram that, you have your call center agent or your servers and your acquire or your different websites, and then you have all the lines showing the data flows. Essentially, requirement floor is just looking at those lines. It's not caring about the systems or the individuals themselves. It's just looking at those lines, look at each of those and how you're protecting data as it's getting from A to B, C to D. And if you do that, you should be good for requirement floor.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So
One of these that really comes up a lot. I mean, again, where you start talking about all these types of e-commerce technologies or transmitting cardholder data is mobile app. And I don't feel like PCI's guidance has really hit on this in specificity that I feel like it could. So a lot of times this transmission, what I've seen out in the wild is the mobile app itself will have, it's either transmitting that cardholder data to some sort of third-party service provider, where essentially, for I think ACI is one of the more popular ones that I've seen. But essentially, the mobile app itself, there's a public key, private key, and the mobile app is actually going up and grabbing ACI's public key, encrypting cardholder data on the device, on the user's device itself, and then transmitting that cardholder data up into this payment gateway for ACI. So that's a very popular product that a lot of merchants will go through to kind of implement their mobile app payments. However, I've also seen it different ways. But typically most instances, and you can kind of tell me what you think, Kyle, here is most everybody kind of third parties these out and then they collect on the back end.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I feel like it's rare to, not impossible but rare to see someone who has that, app that's sending data internal and gets sent back external. It's more so doing a process like that, almost a little bit similar to more of like an iframe or redirect process, essentially, where you're kind of trying to offload as much of that scope as you possibly can to that third party that's handling, processing for you.
So I will mention to everybody out there that's listening. So in those instances, so you got to have to think about what is going to be in scope for your PCI compliance. Even though you have this payment gateway that's out here that's processing your payments themselves, ultimately you are creating the redirect or the iframe or whatever that may be. So your SDLC process is going to be in scope for the transmission of that cardholder data. But also keep in mind too, is if you use a third, and I've seen this a couple of different instances, if you use a third party to do your SDLC process, which transmits that cardholder data to that payment gateway, all that is going over a public network. However, those third parties, each one of them, even if it's just the SDLC process, has to have an AOC as well. They are ultimately responsible with transmitting your cardholder data on your merchant ID to that payment gateway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all has to. That's just it. That's the big ticket item there. Really, is that whoever is developing that app, that program, etc., that has to be done with PCI in mind, so that it's not introducing vulnerabilities or sending card data where it shouldn't be, or storing it where it shouldn't be. All of those types of things, because otherwise, there's no way to know what's going on.
Yeah. Keep in mind, whoever's handling that public networking, cardholder data, you better have something from them or they're going to get pulled into the assessment.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that already that just straight up answered a question I was going to ask, I feel like. Which was so if I have a vendor or service provider that is accepting payments on my behalf, am I responsible for their PCI compliance? That basically answers that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
they
it is
can't
something.
provide an attestation, then they get you're like, hey, let's set up a meet with such and such. We're gonna talk to them now.
Time to do it.
It is a question too that I've had before that, like say you outsource, for instance, your web development or your app development to this third party. And a question is who is ultimately the merchant of record for the acquirer, relationship, because it is totally possible. And it's something I've worked with where someone has, they develop an app, but that third party that's developing it, they actually have their own relationship with, whatever bank, and they're handling all of that. And essentially you're just settling up behind the scenes. In that case, they're responsible for PCI compliance of that. It's not your problem at all. I would still recommend you do your due diligence, make sure they have their AOC and whatnot. But if that card data gets breached, it's, not going to be your problem other than from a PR standpoint. Whoever owns that merchant relationship, they're the ones that essentially own those credit card numbers while they're being transmitted through those systems.
That is a huge point right there. I cannot tell you how this is key to make sure when it comes to that, to your point, SDLC process, is your merchant ID is the one where this is being transmitted on. Ultimately, till it gets up to that payment gateway and, whatever happens on the back end, you got to make sure, are you the merchant of record? 100% on that one. 100%.
Yeah, an easy way to think about it is that obviously for PCI, it's the card brands, American Express, Discover, Visa, etc. They're the ones that really care about this. And if a Visa card gets breached, they're going to go to the bank that was, trying to accept that, and they're going to, say to that bank what happened. That bank is then going to go to the merchant and say what happened. And so it's whatever, flowing through that, kind of responsibility umbrella, whoever ends up, that's where it gets, pushed to. And so that's where the merchant of record, if it's you, even if you have this third party doing it all for you, you're the merchant of record. It's your problem. You have to make sure that they're doing things compliantly. If your third party you're working with, if they're the merchant of record, it's their problem. Obviously, it still might be a big deal. You might be the one with your name in the headlines, but you still didn't fail PCI.
Right.
Man, PR problems are a pain. make sure on top of this stuff regardless.
That's just it. No matter what, vendor management is huge. Even if they are responsible for PCI, I still recommend all the due diligence. Look at, requirement 12.8, do all those things regardless, but it's not ultimately 100% your responsibility if they're the merchant of record.
For sure. And just remember this, you can pay to have someone do the due diligence, but you can't pay to fix a reputation. So
that's true.
I mean, it's worth it to go. It's worth it to go through the process and make sure people are doing stuff right before you just start going all in. But gentlemen, that was requirement 4. That was pretty quick and easy today. That's a little bit shorter than some of the others that we've done, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
I think it's the shortest requirement in the standard as far as just the number of sub requirements.
Yeah, because they're only 2?
7's going to be pretty close too.
Oh, is 7 close?
Yeah.
We'll see how long 7 is, everybody. Y'all, anytime, y'all just wait. Hold up, it's coming up next. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Kyle and Andy, any parting words for all of our listeners today?
I highly recommend, in addition to everything that we've kind of talked about already, for those folks that are out there moving or migrating over into the cloud, using containerization for their e-commerce, PCI put out some great guidance last year regarding auditing of containers. That is slowly becoming to light even more so as far as how we audit those. I highly recommend that if you are a merchant or a service provider out there, really start paying attention to how your containers are being used in your CDE and make sure that they are compliant based off of the guidance that PCI has put out there.
Absolutely. The only thing I'd say is, come out and see us in September. Come to Portland so we can all say hi. And if you're coming, let us know. Reach out on LinkedIn or, shoot us an email or whatever. The more the merrier.
Hey, those are some good words, guys. Those are some good words. Next up is going to be requirement 5 for the next month's episode, everybody. So stay tuned. And thank you for listening. Appreciate it. This is William Parks with LBMC Information Security, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See you guys.